In a world that moves too fast, where people pass each other without a second glance, it's easy to believe that small acts don't matter. But sometimes, a single moment of kindness can travel farther than we ever imagine. From one life to another and back again. This is not just a story about giving, it's a story about how kindness finds its way home. The kindness chain. On a freezing morning, the city felt unusually quiet, wrapped in a pale mist as the first light of day struggled to break through. People moved quickly, heads down, breath visible in the cold air, each lost in their own world. Among them was Elena, walking fast, her heart racing, not from the cold, but from the weight of an important day ahead. She clutched her bag tightly, her thoughts filled with worry, hope, and urgency. Around her neck was a warm red wool scarf, soft and familiar, a small comfort against the harsh wind. She pulled it closer and kept moving until something made her slow down. On a quiet park bench sat a man, alone, shivering. His hands trembled, his shoulders curled inward, his thin clothes no match for the cold. People passed him without a glance, but Eleanor couldn't. She paused, looking at him, then at the time. She was already late. Her feet tried to move forward, but her heart stayed behind. She walked a few steps, then stopped. Something didn't feel right. She turned back. The man was still there, still shivering. Eleanor took a slow breath and checked her pockets. Nothing. No money, no food, just the scarf. Her fingers touched it gently, and for a moment, she hesitated. The cold brushed against her skin, and a quiet thought whispered. She needed it too. But then she looked at him again, and that was enough. Slowly, she removed the scarf, the warmth leaving her as the cold rushed in. Holding it carefully, she walked toward him. He looked up, surprised, unsure. Eleanor said nothing. She simply leaned in and began to wrap the scarf around his neck, her hands gentle, her movements calm, an act of kindness beginning without a single expectation in return. As the scarf settled around his neck, Eleanor adjusted it gently, making sure it wrapped him in warmth. For a brief moment, their eyes met, hers soft and kind, his filled with quiet surprise. "Stay warm," she said softly. Then, without waiting for thanks, she stepped back, turned, and walked away into the cold, her figure slowly fading into the morning mist. The man sat there, still, as if the world had paused around him. Slowly, he lifted his hands and touched the scarf, feeling its warmth, not just on his skin, but somewhere deeper. His expression softened, the tension in his shoulders easing, a faint smile beginning to form. For the first time that morning, he wasn't just surviving, he was seen. He sat there for a while, holding onto that feeling before slowly rising to his feet. Something had changed, not loudly, not dramatically, but enough to carry him forward with a little more strength, a little more dignity, and a quiet reminder that kindness still existed. A little while later, on a busy winter street, a delivery truck pulled to a stop. The driver stepped out in a hurry, unaware that something had slipped from his pocket. A banknote drifted down quietly onto the cold pavement, unnoticed by everyone around. The man with the red scarf walked by and saw it. He bent down and picked it up, holding it tightly in his hand. For a moment, his thoughts battled within him. He needed it more than most. But then his fingers brushed against the scarf. The warmth, the memory, the kindness he had received without being asked anything in return. He looked up and saw the driver walking away. And in that instant, his choice was made. He ran, Sir, sir, he called out, his breath cutting through the cold air. The driver turned, confused. The man reached out and handed the money back. You drop this. For a brief moment, there was silence, then surprise, and then something deeper. Grateful and moved, the driver smiled, walked to a nearby stall, and returned with a hot cup of tea and a warm meal. As the man held the steaming cup in his hands, the warmth spread once again, not just through his fingers, but through his heart. Because kindness, once given, had now been shared and carried forward. With a lighter heart, the driver continued on his way, the warmth of that moment still with him. A little ahead, he noticed a car pulled over by the roadside. A woman stood beside it, glancing at her watch, worry written all over her face. A flat tire, and no time to spare. He could have driven past, but he didn't. He pulled over, stepped out, and got to work. And within minutes, the tire was fixed. Relief washed over her. She reached for her wallet. Please, let me pay you. He shook his head with a gentle smile. No need. A man in a scarf reminded me to do the right thing. She paused, those words lingering in her mind as she drove away. She rushed into her office, still thinking about what had just happened. She was a recruiter, and someone's future depended on her decision that day. As she walked down the hallway, she noticed a young woman waiting outside, seated quietly. Eleanor sat there, composed, hands gently clasped together, but subtly rubbing them for warmth. No scarf. In this cold, the recruiter noticed. The girl stood up politely. For interview, she asked. Please, go ahead and wait inside the interview room, the recruiter said gently. Eleanor took a deep breath as she entered the room. When she stepped inside, the room was calm. The recruiter gathered her files, straightened the papers, and paused for a brief moment before entering, taking a breath, settling herself. She stepped inside with a gentle smile. Hi, Eleanor. I'm so sorry for the delay. Thank you for waiting. It's okay, Eleanor replied softly. The recruiter glanced at Eleanor for a moment and couldn't help asking, Why aren't you wearing something warm? Eleanor looked up and smiled, a simple, sincere smile. I had one this morning, she said quietly. But I gave it to someone who needed it more. The recruiter leaned in slightly. You gave it away? In this cold? Eleanor nodded. He looked like he needed it more than I did. For a moment, everything became still. The words echoed. The memory returned. The man, the scarf, the quiet act of kindness. And suddenly, the connection, the unseen chain, now complete. The recruiter's expression softened, her eyes warm with understanding. A quiet smile spread across the recruiter's face. Eleanor, she said, her voice calm and warm. I think I already know the kind of person you are. And that matters more than anything on your resume. The tension in Eleanor's shoulders eased. The nervousness faded. She felt calm, lighter, ready, not just to face the interview, but to face whatever came next. Because sometimes, kindness travels in ways we cannot see. From one person to another and another, until one day, it finds its way back. Kindness is a boomerang. It always finds its way home.